MAGA Fox News host Greg Gutfeld was visibly triggered by his liberal co-host, Jessica Tarlov, when she reminded him that Donald Trump and Republicans have a longer, richer history of violent rhetoric than President Biden and the Democrats. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at in this video. I know we did a Jessica Tarlov video yesterday, but as you know, we are the unofficial fan club of Jessica Tarlov. She's been gone for months on maternity leave, and she is back in time for the Republican National Convention. And her sanity and sober commentary and brilliant debate skills were sorely missed. And she was back on the 5, in which she's outnumbered by 4 MAGA co-hosts, and she triggered one of them, one of the more deranged ones, Greg Gutfeld, with a brutal fact check. We're going to play the clip and unpack it together.
But nobody who's being an honest broker can possibly believe that the Democratic rhetoric is the problem here. So if the issue is that we're saying all the time that he's like Hitler and he's a threat to democracy, and by the way, J.D. Vance has also said that he's like Hitler, and I guess he's redeemed now, but Donald Trump sent a fundraising email just last week that said Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. And only one of these candidates has inspired people who sent pipe bombs to leading Democrats across the country, who has inspired mass shooters. Talk about firing up the base. Donald Trump has been doing that since 2016. Remember when he said the Second Amendment people could take care of it? Right when he was talking about Hillary Clinton abolishing the Second Amendment and she'll get to appoint judges. He talked about, remember that congressman from Montana who body slammed a reporter and he said, he's my type. He retruthed or whatever it was, a video of Joe Biden hogtied just back in
that was hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Your
hilarious.
examples are so tiny.
No, they're
We're
not.
talking about an attempted assassination that left a man dead. A shooter groomed and incentivized by a drumbeat of demonization.
You have no idea what
can
that
call people.
registered Republican
You can call people.
But
So this is why I know I miss Jessica Tarlov, and I imagine many of you did as well. She's just always bringing the damn receipts. I mean, Greg Gutfeld's reaction to that was so instructive. Number one, how unhinged was Greg Gutfeld to say, oh, it's hilarious, Donald Trump retruthing, violent images of President Biden, the sitting president, not the former president, which would be bad enough, but the current commander-in-chief, hogtied, on a decal on the back of a truck. Imagine how Greg Gutfeld would react if the role had been reversed prior to the assassination attempt against Donald Trump, and it had been President Biden who retweeted an image of Donald Trump bound and gagged on the back of a truck. How would Greg Gutfeld have reacted? Well, he would have lost his mind. The entire episode of The 5 would have been dedicated to that singular image, and that was prior to an assassination attempt. The bottom line is, what Jessica Tarlov is pointing out is not just an asymmetry with respect to the violent rhetoric by Donald Trump and the Republicans versus President Biden and the Democrats, but she also exposed the asymmetry in reaction. We know how Republicans like Greg Gutfeld would react. They laugh, they delight in violence being perpetrated against Democrats by Republicans or by the apolitical. It doesn't matter, because people they hate are the subject and recipients of the violence. But when it's somebody they do like, well, then that's different. And you'll note there that Greg Gutfeld just assumed that the person responsible is a Democrat or a progressive. We don't know that. As a matter of fact, the initial data, the initial information around the shooter reveals that he was a conservative Republican. That may change. More evidence may come out. We don't know. But the initial data suggests that he's not a pro-Biden Democrat. And I've got several more clips I want to play, but just some snippets of what she was talking about. Because again, this one in particular, I forgot about. And again, I've said this is the crazy thing about Donald Trump. He does so many unhinged things that we forget about it. In 2016, he was talking to a crowd of people, and he suggested that people could use their Second Amendment rights to deal with Hillary Clinton if she wins or if she won the 2016 election.
Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, and if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know. But
they're suggesting assassination. He was suggesting assassination, vigilante assassins trying to deal with a hypothetical President Hillary Clinton. Imagine if Hillary Clinton had said that. Imagine how the right-wing media would have reacted, or how even mainstream media would have reacted. But for too long, Donald Trump has been graded on an absurd curve. Another just random example. Last year, Donald Trump retruthed the address, or the alleged address, of President Obama's D.C. home. And then later, days later, a gunman, a Trump-loyal gunman who saw the address, retruthed it. We know there's a direct connection between Trump sharing the address. That guy was active on Truth Social, retruthed it as well, and then was arrested outside of President Obama's home. Prosecutors, man went near Obama's home after Trump posted alleged address. Taylor Toronto, 37. We got these losers surrounded. See you in hell, Podestas and Obamas. And then he began live streaming from his van on his YouTube channel. Okay. Insane, unhinged stuff. And again, if we went through the many examples of Donald Trump's violent rhetoric or his associations with violence compared to President Biden and the Democrats, we'd be there all damn day. We'd be here. Yesterday, I played clips and discussed a performance by our buddy Luke Beasley on Piers Morgan's latest pro-Trump, anti-Biden panel. But the whole thing, which was, by the way, an hour and a half, was really, really good. There's a full 45-minute section here. But what I'm about to show you is a couple of minutes from that 45-minute segment with Wahaja Ali, who is a critic of President Biden with respect to foreign policy, but also recognizes that he thinks Biden should win the election. He supports Biden over Donald Trump, and he was asked on Piers Morgan's latest pro-Trump, anti-Biden panel, especially in the aftermath of the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, to denounce violence. And Wahaja Ali makes a point to say it is dishonest to suggest that there's a symmetry between the two sides when it comes to violent rhetoric. And he put on a masterclass performance.
I just saw your interview with Ben Shapiro where it was nothing but whataboutism, and I'm not here to BS your audience or gaslight anyone. There was a registered Republican, a white male, who tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Unfortunately, also there was a person who was killed, a father, and there were two people who were critically injured. And Donald Trump, ever since he descended the escalators 9 years ago and ascended to power for 9 years, has stoked the ultra-violence. I remember at his protest, he used to openly say, knock the crap out of him, I'll pay for your legal bills. This is the same people who's called the press, people like us, people like you, Piers, enemy of the people. And as such, for the past 9 years, multiple cases where his followers have tried to commit violence against law enforcement, the press, poll workers. This is the same man who said, as of this campaign, I want to be dictator for a day. Last week, he praised the January 6th violent insurrectionists, called them hostages. He incited a violent insurrection. When those insurrectionists came to the Capitol with violence, some of them came to assassinate Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, his former vice president. You know what he said? Yeah, they're onto something. He encouraged them to kill Mike Pence, his former vice president. 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump posted that he wants televised military tribunals for Liz Cheney, who used to be the number 3 Republican, and also the head of Heritage Foundation, who has released Trump's Project 2025 2 weeks ago, Piers, said that we're in the process of a second American revolution, and it will be bloodless unless the left allows it to be. This is what we're dealing with. It is a toxic environment which has been stoked by Trump's embrace of the ultraviolence and violent rhetoric. And yesterday, Nancy Pelosi, her husband Paul Pelosi, folks, for those who don't know, another far-right nut, tried to assassinate her. He opened the door. He took a hammer to her head. He survived an assassination attempt. Do you know what MAGA and Trump did? They mocked him, ridiculed him, promoted conspiracy theories, and then Trump joked about it with the public. Nancy Pelosi yesterday, regardless of what you think about their politics, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and President Biden wished Trump well. They wished peace. They de-escalated the situation. And all of a sudden, we have whataboutism from the right wing. And I want to say one last thing about the right wing. Mitt Romney was the 2012 Republican presidential candidate. Do you know what Mitt Romney said? Openly admitted, he has to pay $5,000 a month for security for his family. He said Republicans in office right now are also terrified for their life. You know who they're terrified from? MAGA Republicans.
That was a masterclass performance, okay? Debunking the whataboutisms and false equivalents. if you have instances of Democrats, particularly prominent Democrats and Democratic influencers engaging in violent rhetoric, you're free to call that out. But in my opinion, what you're not free to do, or rather what you can do and should be called out on, is insinuating that there's an equivalence. The Republicans are just simply worse on this issue, objectively, by far. There are tweets going around highlighting, it's almost like a duality of man. You know, the hypocrisy. Don Jr. Dems and their friends in the media knew exactly what they were doing with the literal Hitler BS. But then Don Jr. 3 years ago, it's a total disgrace what's going on in this fascist regime. Democracy dies in darkness. So they're free to use such extreme language, but not opponents of them. Ben Shapiro, of course, talking about how the rhetoric surrounding Donald Trump contributed to the attack against him. But then, you know, Ben Shapiro, and this isn't the only time this has happened, just a random example from 2 years ago. The attempt to twist the Paul Pelosi attack into a broader story about the supposed extremism and Republican rhetoric is so transparently opportunistic and pathetic. Everyone can see what you're doing, Democrats and the media, and it's disgusting. So we can go on and on like this, but there's a clear double standard. It's going to be something that we continue to talk about in the aftermath of this assassination attempt, because Republicans are cynically attempting to suggest that they are either blameless or that Democrats are somehow as responsible as they are. And both of these things are simply false. Let me know what you think in the comments.